We're here in Monte Carlo for the Rendez-Vous de Septembre. For Invest TV, I'm Richard Banks. And I'm joined now by Charles Mathias, who's Deputy Chairman of Fidelis MGU. Charles, welcome.
Good morning.
So, Charles, you've got some first-hand experience of the attitudes of investors towards the reinsurance sector at the moment. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I suppose if you had to use one word to sum up how the general sentiment of the investor space towards our industry is at the moment, I think I'd say sceptical. I think over the last several years, as an industry, we've made a lot of statements and a lot of promises, and a lot of it's going to be different next time, and we just really haven't made very much money as an industry over the last several years. So I think sceptical is the principal term. Investors are interested in the insurance space. It is a diversifying investment for them. You know, it's not correlated to the broader financial market, so there'll always be interest. I do think as insurance rates are rising, that provides some competition in terms of allocation of resource to the insurance space. And I think one thing we've noticed here this week is that there can be something of a reluctance to speak about climate change on the part of the insurers. And, you know, there's been a lot of political pressure about speaking on and acting on climate change, and I understand that reluctance. But it's very close to the top of the agenda, if not top of the agenda, for a lot of investors. And they've got some very blunt questions about how we as an industry are addressing climate change and what are we doing about mitigating those impacts of climate change. So I think that's been a theme that we've picked up several times over the course of the last few days here. So definitely, I think sceptical would be the key word.
And you've given some idea there of some of the things that insurers and reinsurers can do to overcome that scepticism. Is there anything that...
I think we're very much focused on, as a reinsurer, I think selling an all-risk product with the assumption on the part of the client that anything that happens is going to be claimed for. If we are, as an industry, want to charge an appropriate price, we're much better off selling peril-specific covers, thinking carefully about aggregation, thinking about frequency, severity, exposure growth, which is a massive part of the increase in losses, and then trying to put an appropriate price and aggregation limit on that. So I think that's something that we're very keen to do in our reinsurance business. And when you look at our insurance lines, a lot of what we're selling on the insurance side very much is peril specific. So I think there are some lessons for us all to learn there.
So we're here at the end, towards the end of the Monte Carlo Rendezvous. You've discussed some of the discussions that you've been having. How have your perceptions changed over the course of the week?
I'm not sure they've changed in any drastic way. I think our CEO, Richard Brindle, who's the CEO of the Fidelis MGU, he has said to a number of people, and there's been a lot of agreement, that this conference probably is set too early. It used to be 20 years ago. July and August were over, and more or less the Atlantic windstorm season was over by the middle of September. Now it stretches on certainly through September and October and even into November. So it's very difficult to come here and say with assurance, you know, well, we know how we've done this year and here's what we need to do next year. So I think that's certainly something that we've picked up, that there's not a lot of sort of deal doing here now. It's more about posturing for the 1st of January renewals, and the brokers all say, oh, the prices have to come down, and the insurers all say, oh, the prices have to go up. Although that said, I think there is a broad-based agreement between most of the brokers, most of the insurers and reinsurers that the pricing does have to keep going up, because back to your first point, we have to produce sustainable returns for investors to be interested in putting money into the space.
So as well as producing returns, there's a sense also of remaining relevant. How does the insurance industry work to remain relevant?
It's a challenge, and with every loss that happens outside of North America, North Europe, Japan, the protection gap is more and more stark. We've seen these terrible floods in Libya. I don't know what amount of that loss will flow into the insurance and reinsurance markets, but very, very small. We see it again in Morocco with the earthquake. I saw one estimate that economic damage is about 5 billion and insured losses are about 400 million. Although there is a sense within the industry that we do need to do better, and a number of insurers, and particularly the brokers, credit to the brokers, people like Howden, people like Gallagher, people like Aon and Marsh, who are really getting on the front foot and trying to put together products, often parametric products, that governments can buy that will give them funds post-event. So I think there is some optimism that we can do a bit more there.
So there are innovative solutions potentially on the horizon.
Yeah, and I think the spreading the benefits of insurance, and it's not just to governments. NGOs are looking more and more at. We were talking to one of the major UK NGOs, and they were saying we used to have one or two crises that we would raise money for in a year, and that was fine. You can appeal to people for money once or twice, but when you're going to people 4 or 5 times, they get exhausted at a certain point. So if you could use some of the money to buy insurance products and spread risk, then I think there's a broadening assumption that we can do better in a broader sphere than we do today.
Charles, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Not at all, thank you.
For AM Best TV, I'm Richard Banks.